All right, guys, what is up? What is up? Today's lesson is going to be all about what's called the incumbency advantage. So, we've already talked a lot about incumbency and the advantages to that, but today I just want to give you guys a little bit more detail on what that is. And I have seen a lot of a lot of the stuff on today. I have seen it on past tests. So make sure you take good notes. I'm not going to give you fill in the blank notes today, just because you guys can pause whenever you need to. Definitely take advantage of that pause button, so you can stop it, so you can write down these notes. Again, if you already know this stuff, don't write it down. If you already think you know it and you have a solid understanding, no need to write it down, because it's already in here. And if it's already in here, then that's better. That's better than having it written down. All right, so let's get started. Today I don't have a colorful PowerPoint for you guys, but first off, I want to talk about the scope of this incumbency advantage, of what actually does this mean. So in the House, over 90% of those congressmen that are already in Congress, that's incumbency, they are going to get reelected again. So that's a huge rate. In the Senate, that's over 80%. Again, huge, absolutely huge. I think the election of 2014 wasn't quite as huge, but still very big. And a lot of these seats are going to be considered safe seats. A lot of the seats in the House they're not really seriously contested, meaning that if you were an incumbent, you will probably be the person that gets reelected most of the time, meaning that you're safe. Once you're able to get a seat in Congress, you're basically safe. And for the most part, it's going to be difficult to get you out of there unless something big and serious happens. And this is why a lot of people will be critical of this type of system, and they will say that our House is really permanent because not a whole lot of people will change from it. And I think we've talked about this stuff before, but just to reiterate it for you. But to counter this idea of the permanent Congress, is that reelection rates take into account only those incumbents who run for reelection. So when retirements open up, oops, I lost my, there we go. When retirements open up, quite a few seats each year will open up to new members. However, that's going to take retirement, and retirement, depending on when they get elected, that can be quite a long time. So here's a chart for you guys, so you can see from year to year, really how many people, or how the amount of percentage get reelected. This is from 1964 to 2006. All right, so the specific advantages, the franking privilege. We've learned this already. So that franking privilege, that's where congressmen, they can mail out things for or they can mail out posters for free for their election, or their campaign. That's what I'm looking for, campaign. Franking privilege. And you guys will notice, if you get any franking in the mail, you will see it actually say like paid for by the United States, and that paper that they print that stuff on, very thick paper, very nice paper, not the cheap stuff. If you are not an incumbent, then you're probably producing your campaign materials on cheaper material. But staffers also, so you get staffers. Name recognition. Think about our congressman, Ken Calvert. Most of you guys should know Ken Calvert by now. However, a lot of you guys probably don't know the person that ran against Ken Calvert, and his name is Sheraton. So name recognition. Casework, we'll talk about casework in a second. And then money, especially from PACs. So money, what I'm referring to here is not necessarily like backroom money, although I guess that is perhaps a possibility. But remember, that's illegal. That's not supposed to happen. But I'm talking about money for elections. PACs can give money, and you guys know this, to elections up to a certain amount. And so casework, which is right here, casework is just activities of members of Congress that help constituents as individuals. So there are a lot of examples of this, but the first one that I can think of is, let's say think of your grandma or your grandpa. Let's say they should be getting Social Security. Remember the Social Security Act that FDR he implemented during his presidency in the 40s, or I think no 30s, 1930s. But so your grandma, your grandpa is supposed to be getting Social Security. However, for some reason they are not. So what you can do is you could contact your congressman, and he or she will perhaps maybe contact Social Security for you and try to figure out what's going on. So that would be an example of casework. A lot of times with casework, congressmen are, or usually their staffers, they are dealing with some bureaucratic agency, typically. So we've learned gerrymandering, and that is, or could perhaps be an advantage for the incumbency. So gerrymandering, before we get the details of gerrymandering, you need to understand what reapportionment is. So reapportionment, that's the distribution of the 435 seats in the House on the basis of changes in the state population. So population is changing over and over and over. It's consistently changing. However, every 10 years, there will be a census that will essentially measure this change of population. So with that, reapportionment is going to happen because a population is changing. So as we know, the number of representatives per state is determined by population. We know that. Like I said, the census is conducted every 10 years, and the census is going to show population changes in states. And these population changes must be reflected in state representation. And again, we do this, this is done every 10 years. This is the census. So if a state gains significant people in population, it will probably gain some seats. However, if a state loses population, then it's probably going to lose some states. So geographically, in what we call the Sun Belt, so like the Southwest region, they are historically, recently in the last 50 years or so, gaining population, thus gaining states, thus gaining seats in Congress. However, the Rust Belt, so that region like Pennsylvania, Ohio, like the northeastern area, they're losing population, so they're going to be losing seats. So this is just what's been happening historically within the last 50 years, but we'll see what happens. So that's reapportionment. So if a state has a change in the number of seats, its district boundaries must change as well. So this is known as redistricting. So we have reapportionment here, and then redistricting here, and this is going to be usually carried out by the party in power of the state legislator. A form of redistricting is gerrymandering, and gerrymandering, we've talked about this I think probably 3 or 4 times. It's just redrawing the boundaries to favor a particular group, and this is going to be whatever party you're in typically. What I put here for you guys is kind of like the textbook definitions of what apportionment and redistricting is. I have seen these 2 terms on the test, and they were on your quiz a couple days ago, so make sure you guys have a solid understanding of what these mean. So to give you an example of redistricting, where I'm at right now, which is in Riverside, our congressman used to be Ken Calvert a few years ago. However, because this district has been, because of the census and because of population shifts, we have had redistricting, which means I am no longer in the 42nd district. So my congressman in Riverside is Mark Takano, not Ken Calvert. However, it was Ken Calvert a few years ago, and that is due to apportionment and redistricting. So here's some examples of gerrymandering. So if you take a look at these districts, it's very apparent that they are definitely drawn to favor somebody. And we'll talk more about this in a second. Here's some more very crazy lines, like all within right here. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Some more. This one's really crazy. Look at that. Here's another one. This one is extremely odd, very skinny and tall. All right, so more with gerrymandering, and I think we've got a lot of gerrymandering in the past, but it's still good just to talk about it. So the origin of the term, Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry, he's going to redraw district lines himself, and he's going to draw these. Remember to make sure that they are good, that they these constituents are going to support him. And the way he did this was in a very odd shape. Almost this shape looked like a salamander. So he would get criticized by this. So what I forget what newspaper it was, but a newspaper combined his name Gerry with these oddly shaped districts that looked like salamanders, so that's where we get the term gerrymandering. So the party in power can get a majority of seats in the House by either packing or cracking a district. So this is pretty confusing, so I wish I could like draw somewhere over here for you to show you, but what I did instead is I put a video on my website. So look at my website after you watch this lecture. Look at my website and you'll see those or this video that I'm talking about. But packing is drawing district lines in such a way where you're going to concentrate the opposing party in a few districts, thus preserving a majority of seats for itself. So you're going to look at the population, and the population that is alike, you're going to pack them into as small districts as possible, because the goal is to get as many districts that are going to favor that person as possible. So you want as many districts as possible for you. So with packing, what you're going to do is you're going to take similar population. Maybe it could be wealth, could be based on perhaps race. So you're going to take that group of people and you're going to pack them into as small districts as possible, so they have less voting power, less district power. The opposites can be cracking. So cracking is when district lines are drawn in such a way to where you're going to disperse that opposing party throughout the state. And it's essentially like dilution. You're spreading your opponents into different districts to where they will be the minority party. Thus, the majority party in that district will win over that district, or eventually win over seats in the House. So we have packing and cracking, and again, I'll post videos that hopefully, I'm probably not doing a very good job explaining this, but hopefully that'll explain it more for you. So here's some effects of gerrymandering. The party will stay in power. These seats are even more safe now because they're created for incumbents. They're created for incumbents, leading to further difficulties for challengers. Again, we see these really strangely shaped districts. And then we're going to see these things called majority-minority districts that are going to be created by racial gerrymandering. So this is kind of an odd term, majority-minority districts. What that is just this idea of a district having a majority of minorities. So the majority people in that district are minorities. That's what a majority-minority is. And this is usually done with when people try to pack districts because they want to ensure that one certain type of people are in as many or as few as districts as possible. So this is the majority-minority districts. So here's some Supreme Court requirements over the years about redistricting. So districts must be as near equal in population as possible. And right now it's about 650,000 people. That's the population for each district, about. And this is due to a few Supreme Court cases, Baker versus Carr, which was in '62. This is the idea of one man, one vote. And the idea with this was that a citizen in Tennessee Baker, he's going to sue, I believe it was the like the Secretary of State in Tennessee, which was Carr. And we'll get more into this case later on in class, but he was saying that the Tennessee district lines have not been changed since like 1900 or 1901 or something like that, and that there was overrepresentation in certain areas, overrepresentation of rural people compared to those in urban areas. So there was a malapportionment. What malapportionment, what that means is just apportionment that has not been done right. So bad apportionment. And there was bad apportionment in rural areas. So this court case is going to try to correct that idea. Another case, Westbury versus Sanders, that's going to apply that same idea. However, now it's going to apply that to House districts. So that's directly being implemented by our nation, the United States of America. Even if the number of representatives to which a state is entitled does not change, it must redistrict anyway. And this is key because of geographic shifts in population that may have occurred within the previous 10 years. So this is going to solve this problem of apportionment that has gone bad. Even if, like this says, even if the number of representatives will not change, redistricting still must happen within that state to solve the problem of malapportionment. District lines must be contiguous. What that means, this is the idea that like the lines of the district must touch each other. So there can't be any like two totally separate areas to where there's, I wish I could draw this for you, but where there was two, you know what, I'm going to draw this for you because it's too hard to explain. Let me find a scratch piece of paper. So districts must be drawn like this, not like this. So this cannot be one district. It has to be within itself. So this cannot be one district. Okay. So racial gerrymandering is prohibited. So that idea of like the majority minority being represented, that cannot happen. Race may not be the primary factor in drawing district lines. So the idea also is that one cannot dilute racial minority voting strength. So you cannot crack districts based on race. You can't crack districts anyways, but you definitely cannot dilute it due to race. And communities of interest may be kept intact. So communities of interest, what I'm referring to there is just people groups. This idea of people groups should be intact. All right, so that's it. That's all for today's lecture. I know it was stuff that we've already covered, but be prepared for a short quiz next class. I'm going to post a few videos online. I can think of two. One right now, but I might think of others later. One is to do with gerrymandering, and the other one is doing with apportionment and redistricting. So let me know if you have any questions. Text me, email me if you have any questions, and I will see you next class.